Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday, though it's more like a Wednesday here at the Giants practice facility. And welcome to Big Blue Kickoff Live right here on Giants.com and the Giants mobile app. John Schmeelk, Lance Medow with you. The phone number, and they're already ringing, 201-939-4513. Get on the horn. Talk some Giants football with us. Big Blue Kickoff Live is brought to you by Pepsi Zero Sugar, new and improved. Zero never tasted so good. All right, Lance, Howard and Paul did a good job covering that Giants-Vikings wild card matchup yesterday. So we'll use today to kind of talk about that game and reference it ahead to the matchup that is coming on Saturday night against the Philadelphia Eagles in divisional weekend. 3 NFC East teams remaining, which means we know at least one NFC East team is going to be in the NFC title game, maybe two. Who knows? We'll see. I think that Dallas Niner game is going to be a lot of fun. So here's where I'll start. The Giants, once again, Lance, and I'm happy we spent so much time last week breaking down that first matchup between the Vikings and Giants, because this game was exactly the same.
Yeah, a lot of similarities.
It was exactly the same, except the Giants didn't make those critical mistakes we talked about that cost them the first game. No turnovers, no special teams gaffes in this game. They end up winning 31-24. And let's start with the offense again. Lance, a very pass-heavy attack. Saquon Barkley in the game, fewer than 10 carries. Daniel Jones actually had more design runs than Barkley did, believe it or not. He also scrambled a lot. But, again, a lot more dropbacks called than running plays in the game, Lance. And, you know, it works. And I think this is kind of what I'm going to kind of struggle with this week a little bit and try to figure out. Is this approach and success with this approach due to the Giants' opponents in the last 3 games? And will they continue this approach against a much better and different defense in Philadelphia? We know the Vikings defense literally is one of the worst units in football. 31st in yards, blah, blah, blah.
And it showed.
And it showed again, right? The middle of the field was wide open, crossing routes, guys were wide open. Eagles are not that. So how much are the Giants going to try to continue down this road that they've been on with the Vikings and the Colts? And, this passing offense has looked better than it has all year. You could argue these last 3 games have been 3 of the best in Daniel Jones's career. Probably 3 of its top 10 games have been the last 3 weeks. How much of that is opponent-based and how much of that is something you can repeat this week against Philly? Is much of not even success necessarily, but approach against an Eagles defense that is far superior to anything the Vikings put out there.
Well, and that's why I think, to answer your question, I think it is based on the opposition. I think they saw weaknesses in terms of Minnesota's secondary and not as fierce of a pass rush that Philadelphia is going to present. John, they got 4 guys that have double-digit sacks.
70 sacks.
Yes, 2 shy of the NFL record, which was set by the Bears in '84 when they had 72. And we know any given one of those guys can set the tone in a game. It could be a Josh Sweat game. It could be a Brandon Graham game.
And it does look like Sweat's going to play, by the way.
Well, and I would assume he would, given the fact that he's a few weeks removed from that neck issue, and he was at least back at the facility. Thankfully, it wasn't one of those things where he was hospitalized or anything like that. So when you look at what the Eagles' defense showcases and presents, I go back to, I think the Giants, if they want to continue to have success like this, they have to run the football.
I totally agree. You can't be in 3rd and 2nd and long in this game. It's going to be death.
Bingo. Yeah. Well,
death.
The number that jumps out to me about the win against the Vikings, and we talked about this on the WFAN Giants Radio Network postgame show, they were 7 of 13 on 3rd down, John, and I'm a big proponent of breaking down the 3rd downs, not just looking at the surface, seeing what they're made of.
Only 1 of more than 7 yards in the game. Is that the stat you're going to give?
Just 2. Yeah, but one of them was a kneel down, which was 3rd and 11.
Oh, I didn't even count that one. And by the way,
no, so you are right. Then it really was 1.
And the 3rd and 13, 3rd and 13,
3rd and 11, and a 3rd and 15.
Right, it was a 3rd and 15.
So that's the one to Darius Slayton.
Where they should have converted it anyway. But Slayton drops the ball,
which was a convertible down.
Right.
So the point I'm making is, 11 of your 13 downs that you faced on 3rd down were for 7 yards or less. Okay, well, why was that, John? I would say Daniel Jones is the runner. Made a lot of manageable downs, and Barkley was able to benefit off of that. So
and the short, quick passing game on
100%. Sure, and they should continue to do that because the short passing game is an extension of the run game.
And that can work against Philly also.
So, I wouldn't be shying away from that, but this is not a game where you're looking for home runs against Darius Slay and James Bradbury or putting the ball up 40-some-odd times.
Those longer developing plays on those deep over routes that they continuously kept hitting Darius Slayton on, it's going to be hard to protect long enough to connect on those types of plays against the Eagles pass rush.
Yeah, because the difference between Philadelphia and Minnesota is really night and day from the perspective of you have Zadarius Smith and Danielle Hunter, and those are 2 very respected pass rushers. I'm not taking anything away from
And
them.
by the way, both guys were in the backfield a decent amount. In
Absolutely.
that game.
But Philadelphia has guys at the tackle position that could sack as much as the guys on
correct.
the edge. So it's a different animal. They're cut from a very different cloth. It puts pressure on every single one of your offensive linemen. That's why the run game and the short passing game is the best way to stay in manageable third downs and try to move the football methodically down the field.
Agreed. All right, so we're on the same page on the Giants offense. Let's jump to the defensive side of the ball. I rewatched that game on, what was it, Tuesday, so yesterday, Monday, and boy, I knew he was good watching it live. I didn't realize exactly how good he was until I rewatched the tape. Without Dexter Lawrence, the Giants lose that football game. Period.
Kirk was
Stop.
fantastic.
I mean, Kirk Cousins played a great game. He had Leonard Williams, and by the way, Dexter was so good, I don't want to shortchange Leonard Williams. I thought he did a really good job getting in the backfield too. But, Dexter Lawrence was phenomenal. I mean, he, especially on that last drive in the fourth quarter, Lance, on a couple of plays, open players all over the place. And if Kirk Cousins had a couple more seconds, I shouldn't say all over the place. One, it was a zone. There were a couple guys open in the middle of the field. The other, he could have gotten KJ Osborne. I wasn't sure if it was the third or fourth down. I believe
it was the fourth down, the fourth and 8.
He was coming across the field, and he probably could have hit him on that play.
He had a second or two more, he probably could have got it.
Absolutely.
Or at least taken a shot at
But
him.
Dexter Lawrence was there, and he couldn't pivot back to the left. In fact, Kirk Cousins said in his post-game presser that, look, he was in my face. I had to get rid of the ball. I didn't have time to hold it, and he's not a mobile quarterback, obviously. So, and even on the play that Flott knocked the ball away, Cousins couldn't completely step into that throw because it was either Dexter or Leo on that play. I think it was Dexter.
I think it was Dexter.
Was collapsing the inside of that pocket. So, a lot of people want to make a big deal. Oh, Dory Jackson did a great job on Justin Jefferson. Yeah, he did. I watched that tape, and I watched Justin Jefferson on every play. That was a team effort. They had two guys, sometimes three, assigned to him on every play. The Giants, it's funny. So every week, Pearson has to pick our promo clips to put up on Twitter for, Giants to advertise for Big Blue Kickoff. And last week, on the Friday, he picked the one with me and you, and I go, boy, blitzing's in Wink's DNA. There's no way, he's going to go and blitz like 20% of the time. It's going to be 40. Well, guess what?
Yeah.
Wink blitzed 20% of the time. So shows what the hell I know. He played quarters almost half the time, Lance. And he was able to do it because, A, the Vikings don't want to run the football because they just don't want to run it. That's just what they do. And he had McKinney or Love either over the top or in bracket coverage on Justin Jefferson. And they paid so much attention. The Vikings in the second half, if you go back and you watch the All-22, they used that to their advantage. Where the Giants were paying so much attention to Jefferson. You want to know why Hawkinson 100 yards receiving? Because they had two guys on Jefferson the whole game.
Sure.
So that's another thing, and now I'm going to try to, transfer that over to Philadelphia here. Here's the thing. Jason Kelce, Hall of Famer, one of the best centers of all time. How is Dexter Lawrence going to affect the game against him? And you cannot pay as much attention to an A.J. Brown or a Devontae Smith, take your pick, like you did to Justin Jefferson last week, because A, the Eagles run the football a lot better. They have one of the best offensive lines in football. For my money, the best offensive line in football. And if you only have a light box and you have all these DBs on the field like the Giants had in that
they'll
game,
capitalize on
they
it.
will run. And Nick Sirianni has gotten away from the run, by the way, in the past. But I can't imagine he would in a game like this. They'll run it on you, number one. And number two, all right, you're going to go double A.J. Brown? What are you doing with Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert? And, by the way, Quez Watkins, who's pretty good too. So I think this is going to be, again, on defense, just another different type of strategy with the Philadelphia Eagles compared to the great play and the success and the scheme they had against the Vikings last week.
Which is why, to me, the onus is on the offense. This entire postseason run, no matter how long it goes, it's all on the offense. It's not to say that the defense can't make stops, but, let's face it. The Vikings had a fair share of success, as you pointed out. Kirk was money on point. They were a drive away from tying the game. They scored a bulk of touchdowns. They did make plays when they needed it the most, which is what you're talking about. Game on the line, 4th and 8. Dex doesn't allow Kirk Cousins to make the throw in. Sometimes timing's everything in football.
Hey, 2 drives they did in the game. They got 2 straight stops.
You don't need to shut them down completely, but when you need to make a stop, you want your defense to come through, and the defense did deliver. But you're not going to slow down Philadelphia where you're going to hold them to 15 points.
No, you're going to, much like this game, you're going to have to be between 27 and 35 points probably to win.
So the Giants' offense finished drives against the Vikings. That's what they did. They had 7 legitimate possessions, John. Now, this is another great number. 4 touchdowns, a field goal. They punted twice, okay?
Great.
That's the ratio you want to see. And, oh, by the way, they scored 31 points when they went 43 straight games without even reaching 30.
Only one field goal in the game.
That's what you need to stay and compete with Philadelphia. So, I mean, we could sit here, and once again, it's an interesting conversation. What's Wink going to do and how they're going to slow this down.
And
the bottom line is they got to score.
And we'll be on again on Friday, and we'll get into all the super details on that, too, with the Eagles and all that matchups and stuff like that.
Yeah, but, I mean, it comes down to Daniel Jones and the offense, which has started to play its best football down the stretch. And I'm a big believer, timing, you want to play your best football to carry it over. But with that being said, in fairness,
it was against the Vikings and the Colts.
Correct. You have to put things in perspective where you look at the opposition. And the one game where they did play the starters, because I don't know about you, I don't put a whole lot of stock in that last matchup.
And frankly, Lance, I'm not going to put a lot of stock in either one. I feel like the first matchup was long enough ago where
That's fair.
I think the Giants are playing better, and we don't know what Jalen Hurts is with the shoulder.
True.
So, I honestly, unlike the Vikings game where I think, that last game I think was really telling in what the playoff game would look like.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm not going to do as much of that this time around because I don't feel like the connection's quite as tight.
Well, the only thing I will say is, though, and I understand Hurts is a wild card. I get that. And he did not look to run it all in that last matchup. That's more of a reason why I don't put a whole lot of stock, because we could see a completely different quarterback.
And there was also no McKinney and no Dory Jackson.
Sure,
in the first
absolutely. So the game of chess goes on both
and
sides.
And no Leonard Williams, by the way, in that game. All three of those guys were out. Which
yeah, and I think when Leonard spoke to the media, he indicated he didn't even play against the Eagles the first matchup.
Nope.
So this is going to be his first time.
And I believe was Ezekiel Zolari even playing in that game against Philly? He might have been out too.
He may have still been on IR.
I'd have to look
back.
That.
Yeah, not exactly sure. But the other big difference is Nick Foles, Kirk Cousins, not nearly as mobile as what Jalen Hurts presents.
Absolutely.
So the stress that the quarterback could put on your defense is a lot different. That's the other major difference, because if Hurts is going to look to run, it's like Baltimore with Lamar Jackson. When Lamar is on the field, it's a completely different rushing attack for the Ravens. Yep. Same thing when Hurts is looking to run, completely different. He's not looking to run, you're not as stressed out as a defense. So something tells me that they did not want him to expose himself to hits in that last regular season matchup.
Oh, I mean, it was obvious.
And now with the bye,
you don't have to be Sherlock Holmes to figure that one out.
Correct. So, but you know what? You still say to yourself, they needed to win the division, though.
Correct.
And that's why he played, because I think Nick Sirianni said, hey, we're going to lay it all out on the line. We want to win the division. We want the bye, but
while protecting his shoulder.
We're going to put him out there. But, Jalen, if you have 5 yards to take, you're not taking it. You're going to either give it to the running back or you're going to throw. And
or slide.
That completely changes things. So does the approach differ so much that now you have to account for the Jalen Hurts you saw in the first matchup? That's a huge X factor.
Yeah, and he almost ran for 100 yards in that first matchup. It was the
7 for 77.
Yeah, the Eagles went for 250 in that game on the ground. So you're right. And remember, the rush defense has been something that's been the Achilles heel of this defense for.
And they weren't tested against the Vikings, right? Because they didn't look to run the ball.
Right, and when Dalvin ran it, he did a pretty good job. It's not like he wasn't.
The volume wasn't there, though. Yeah, I mean, come on. The Vikings throw about 64% of the time, which is one of the highest marks in the NFL.
Correct. And by the way, Pearson, you could throw your mic on. Will you confirm that Howard Cross admitted on the plane ride home that Kirk Cousins was pretty good?
He may have, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to get that out of you. Go back to your salad. 201-939-4513. All right, let's get to the calls here, folks. Again, it's a busy week. I'm going to try to rapid fire through the calls today. We'll try to bang through them. We'll get to as many of you as we can, because I know a lot of you guys are excited, and rightfully so, about the Giants taking on the Eagles. And remember, I'll just say this. Look, we all know the Eagles, talent-wise, they're better. They have more Pro Bowlers, All-Pro guys. You know, we talked about the Eagles all year. They might have the most talented roster in the whole NFL, top to bottom. But that doesn't matter. It's one game, and all you got to do is play better than that team on one day. That's all you got to do.
Yeah. Well, that's why the better team doesn't always win in the NFL.
We saw that in 2011, 2007 with the Giants. You just got to play better on that one game, and the Giants will try to do that on Saturday night. Big Blue Kickoff Live is presented by Pepsi Zero Sugar. New and improved. Zero never tasted so good. And don't forget, folks, go subscribe to the Giants Huddle podcast. We have rapid reactions after each game. We have interviews with analysts around the NFL. We have Mike Mayock coming up later on today. I don't think that's posted yet. But the reaction from this past week was Jonathan Casillas. And we'll one or two more podcasts later in the week trying to get a player interview. We'll have our preview with an Eagles report. Do you know what we're getting this week, Lance, for Eagles?
I'm working on it right now, so I don't want to tease and then it not turn out to be.
Yes, I don't know exactly.
But we will have somebody. Yes. I can guarantee you that.
I can guarantee. And we will have a player as well, but much like you, I don't have that confirmed yet.
So there you go.
So I'm hoping for a defensive player that might be covering a wide receiver. We'll see if that happens. So check that out. That comes your way. It'll be on Thursday this week because it's a Saturday game, so it'll come a day earlier. Also working on maybe Moose Johnston from Fox who's calling the game. So we'll see if that happens. Go check it out. Subscribe to the Giants Huddle podcast on your favorite podcast platform or listen on the Giants mobile app or at giants.com/podcast. All right, let's rock and roll, boys and girls. Jerome in Charlotte will join us first. Jerome, what's going on?
Hi, I love the offense, the performance. But I'm worried about the pass rush on the defensive side. Is Ojulari and what is it, X-Man? The two didn't play that much.
Zimenez went in for Ojulari after Ojulari hurt his quad, and he got kneed. That was a quad bruise. Brian Dable said today at his press conference. By the way, Brian Dable did his press conference right before the show. Said nothing. there was really nothing there that we could relay that would be useful, except that Ojulari will be limited today and Pinnock will be limited, though it's just a walkthrough. That's all he gave us, so we'll see. I mean, it's just a thigh bruise. I would think they'll figure out a way to get Ojulari on the field on Sunday would be my guess.
And Pinnock, he said he's turning the corner.
Yep.
After that abdomen injury looked pretty scary.
Well, he was at the Knick game yesterday. They actually showed him on MSG during the Knick game. So
well, then I think that's promising. Correct, that he's up and about. Sure. So that's at least encouraging. And he indicated that everyone will at least practice in some capacity, whether it be limited, off to the side, whatever it may be. That was at least what he laid out with respect to the personnel.
We have our full force in effect by game day.
Have who back by game day? I didn't catch that, Jerome.
So everyone should be playing up by game day.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, look, we think so. There's still 2 more days here, but we'll see. It looks like, look, right now the Giants are as healthy as they've been all season, so you hope that everyone's going to be on the field.
Very good. Go Giants.
Thank you, Jerome. And by the way, I did an interview with Dave Spadaro. He does their Eagles stuff down for the Eagles.com, and I've been doing a spot with him every week with the Giants. Play the Eagles seems like every other week now in the last month, whatever. Yeah. And I kind of talked to him. I'm like, I think the Giants will come in with a game plan, but you can adjust based on what Jalen Hurts is going to do. If he's going to run, how is he going to go? And Dave was like, John, I got to be honest. I mean, there's really not much doubt then here. We think Jalen Hurts is going to play just like Jalen Hurts has all year, and he's going to run it. And the reason they protected him the last game of the year is that, and he said this on the air, so I'm not giving any inside information, that they're going to use him like they had pre-shoulder injury. So based on, and Dave's pretty locked into that stuff. He knows. So, and he goes, look, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't know. But based on what he said to me during the interview, he thinks Hurts is going to be a full go, which to your point with his running ability. I mean, just look how Daniel Jones is running.
Look, affected the Vikings, yeah.
He's 6 first downs. He created 6 first down with his legs in that game.
Minnesota essentially laid out the red carpet. The red carpet was just missing. It parted like the Red Sea,
like
the Vikings
carpet.
Defense. Yeah, maybe a purple carpet would have been more appropriate. But honestly, every time I think Daniel Jones, he dropped back in the pocket, he surveyed the field, he saw the middle of the field completely open. He said, all right, guys, if you're going to give it to me, I'm just going to run.
Yeah, he's either going to throw to somebody in the middle of the field,
I mean, what's the purpose?
Run to the middle of the field.
And once again, Daniel deserves great credit for that because that's good decision-making, taking what the defense gives you and reacting.
He's playing very well.
100%. But something tells me the Eagles are not going to lay things out as easily for Daniel Jones. I think Nick Sirianni's going to see the film and he's going to be like, guys, I don't know what Ed Donatel was thinking as the defensive coordinator, but Jonathan Gannon, you may want to make sure you don't lay out the gifts for Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I will say this, though. I do think his running is going to be essential to the Giants winning this game.
It has to be.
They have 2. We didn't even talk about their corners, right? They have 2 excellent cover corners in Slay and Bradbury. And look, Bradbury's not the fastest guy. He can get beat over the top, but you have to protect long enough to do that. The Giants did get behind them on some double moves in that first game in early December. But guess what? Daniel Jones was either running for his life or on his back, so he couldn't get the ball out to him. The Eagles had a 5-game stretch where they had at least 6 sacks in each game. And, so I think easy completions are going to be at a premium in this game, just based on how the Eagles play defense. So I really do think, design runs, sure, to try to, keep him honest with Saquon. But I think Jones scrambling here, if the Eagles play a lot of man-to-man, that's going to be huge. And kind of, I hate to call them cheap first downs because there is no cheap first down. But
you take him.
It's going to be really important. And I think that Mike Mayock made this point on the Huddle podcast that Jones is going to have to do a lot with his legs in this game to help keep drives alive, avoid the pass rush, and move the ball up and down the field.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have to be able to extend some plays simply because the pass rush is going to come for you, which is good. You need a mobile quarterback when you go up against the Eagles. The question is, if you're Jonathan Gannon, the Eagles defensive coordinator, and Linebackers for the Vikings, you had some veterans back there. I just wonder, is he going to have a guy that's going to shadow Daniel Jones? Because
Will they spy him?
the reason I bring that up, John, is I think you have the cover corners right on the back end. You feel good about Bradbury and Slay handling their own. You feel good about your front being able to handle the Giants' offensive line and apply some pressure. So do you have the luxury to then have a guy in the middle of the field, whether it be a safety or a linebacker, to say, hey, you keep eyes on Daniel Jones because we don't want him to run wild? Because if he does that, then the Giants are going to face manageable third downs, and there's not going to be a lot of opportunities for that Eagles pass rush to really pin their ears back.
Let's go to Rod in D.C. He's up next. What's up, Rod?
Hey, guys.
How you doing?
So I was two brief. I'm doing great. Two brief comments and a question. I was at the game with my 16-year-old son, front row behind the Giants bench Sunday. Talk about the ultimate father-son experience.
That must have been great.
I was lamenting. I was lamenting with Paul a couple of times. I leaned over. We were complaining about how Thibodeau was being held every other play, and they never called it. But anyway, first comment is Howard. I think he asked half rhetorically yesterday. There were a lot of Giant fans right behind the Giant bench, and we were all congregated, and he was asking kind of how the Vikings or the stadium, how that happens. And I say respectfully, I love Howard. It's called resale, spending a ton of money, a ridiculous amount of money on tickets, and you're gonna sit anywhere you want. So yeah, I did a semester of my son's college tuition, but it was incredible. So that's comment number one. Comment number two is, and I'm not the biggest Galladay fan, at ground field level, he made one or two phenomenal blocks that really sprung Saquon, and I never looked at him. I never looked at him as that kind of a blocker. I always looked at him as a receiver that wasn't receiving, but he made one or two where he just flattened the defensive back, and Barkley, did one of his spin moves. So I'd say, maybe look for that Saturday night. And then my question for you guys is, let's just assume everybody's healthy for Saturday night. We saw the Giants in the first game get blown out. We saw them in the second game with second and third teams keeping it close when the Eagles had in their first line playing to win. And then we saw the Minnesota game where everything was on the line, and we were, I think, in my opinion, certainly much more consistent, which is one of the reasons for the win. So my question to you guys is succinct, specific keys to the game, not general, like, we've got to protect Barkley, but specifically 3 or 4 things when you look at the first and second Eagles game and then the game on Sunday. You've got basically 3 different Giant teams. What do we need to do to crystallize everything and have a chance for a good win in the link? And then I'll take it off the air.
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate the call. Look, I haven't done all my Eagles stuff yet, to be honest with you. I just finished the Vikings review, and we did a couple podcasts today, so I haven't really even started writing my Eagles preview. I'll give you a couple quick specific things. Can Evan Neal hold up against Hassan Reddick and Brandon Graham on that side of the field? That could get ugly. It was ugly in the first matchup, early December. So how does he hold up
7
against
sacks.
How does he hold up against those guys? That, to me, for the Giants' offense is essential. And then defensively, can Dexter Lawrence be dominant against Jason Kelce? And I think that's a great matchup between 2 great players. I mean, I could make the argument Dexter Lawrence has been the best player on the Giants this year. Him and Andrew Thomas, to me, have probably been their best 2 players. And the way Dexter's played the last month or so, I mean, he might be the best. So, can he dominate that matchup against Kelce and create pass rush? Because I think against Mailata, and if Lane Johnson's going to play in this game,
And I assume he will.
it sounds like he is. We'll see how good he is. He has a torn adductor muscle, which is kind of in that groin abdomen area. I imagine that's uncomfortable. We'll see how well he plays. But
But remember, they shut him down for the last several weeks, too. He hasn't played.
Yeah, and he didn't. But remember, though, that's an injury that will require surgery after the year. So it's not like the injury is healed. He's just playing through it. It's going to be tough going, I think, for Thibodeau, Ojulari, their other edge rushers. I think, it's going to have to be Dex and Leo to a lesser extent inside, and can the Giants dominate in there, not only getting to the quarterback, but, stopping the run. And I think those are, to me, if you look at 2 keys, I think those are, 2 specific keys where the Giants are going to have to do well if they want to walk out of the game with a win.
Yeah, stopping the run to me is the key on defense because, specifically if Hurts runs wild, that's going to make the job of Miles Sanders and Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell that much easier because now you have to account, if you're the Giants, that on any given play, Hurts could decide to take off. And when you're all of a sudden focusing your attention on Hurts, now the other running backs are having some clearer paths to operate. So that to me is a must. They had 253 rushing yards on 31 carries. You can't have that happen again. On offense, it may be stating the obvious, but I don't think it's a coincidence that the reason why they once again edged the Vikings is they did not turn the ball over. And if you look at the first Philadelphia matchup, they had one legitimate turnover, and then you had the punt that Gillen was penalized for because he tried to kick it off the bounce.
Basically
so that was another turnover. And then what happens on the very next play? The Eagles throw a bomb, and they get a touchdown. You can't spot the Eagles' great field position like that. Got to continue to play clean football. And clean football, of course, means lacking of the sacks, not turning the ball over, the penalties, all of those things. But those were things they avoided against Minnesota. They only had 2 offensive penalties against the Vikings. And remember, they had the Nick Gates holding penalty, and they overcame that.
And by the way, the other penalty took a touchdown off the board.
Yeah, but overcome that.
Yeah.
And that was
they ended up kicking. They didn't score a touchdown, though. They kicked a field goal.
But at least you walked away with points.
Yep.
You didn't turn it over. In the past, penalties like that, they have not regrouped. They have not recovered. So that was another big positive, and that has to be repeated against this Philadelphia team. Because, when the last caller was talking about the last 3 matchups and the differences, that's why this league is so matchup oriented.
Yeah.
The way your team looks like one week, you can't just assume we're just going to bottle it up. We're going to travel to Philadelphia, and it's going to be the same thing. It doesn't work like that.
Look at the Dallas Cowboys in the final week of the regular season against Washington, and then look at them against the Buccaneers.
Exactly.
Like, how is that the same team?
And you say that about a lot of teams in the NFL, right?
It's
It's a pretty much of a head-scratcher.
Half to half. I mean, look at the Jaguars and the Chargers last week.
Yep.
I mean, it's amazing.
And Jacksonville had 4 turnovers.
There you go.
5, actually, if you include the special teams one. Yeah.
I did not get the stat. Is that the first time a team ever won -5 in turnover ratio?
I don't even think you need to look that up.
I don't think
I
so
said that
either.
while watching the game. I mean, my first reaction was, the heck with the Jaguars comeback. How the hell does the Chargers lose a game when they were +5 in turnover
Yeah, I
differential?
know.
I mean, that takes some serious skill.
No, it really does. Like, you have to try really hard.
Oh, tremendously.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to Aiden in New Jersey. He's up next. Hey, Aiden.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
We're good.
Doing all right.
All right, so I have a comment and then like a follow-up on it.
Sure. Wait. So
Yeah,
do you want us to comment on your comment and then you'll follow up, or do you want to comment and then just continue?
Yeah, I'll comment and continue.
Okay.
So
So you have 2
obviously-
So
comments.
it's basically one combined statement.
Yes.
But yes, go
or
ahead.
that. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
2 for 1 special.
Yeah, so-
Go ahead.
So obviously Landon Collins has had a big role, like in the last number of weeks, like going down the stretch in the regular season. And I noticed on Sunday he really didn't have that many snaps, and he only had 1 tackle. I was wondering why, if there's, like, obviously Dable didn't say anything about this, but I was wondering, like, why his role was so reduced. And I'll take it off the
Absolutely. Well, how about your follow?
Yeah,
What
you
happened to the
teased
follow-up?
us. Wait
I
a
know.
minute. Hold on, Aiden. You kept. Oh my God!
That was the follow-up
Hey,
dial tone.
What was that?
I was all juiced up for his follow-up.
Just a
question
one
is-
for one special.
Yeah.
The question is, did he hang up or Pearson? Did you hang up on him?
Pearson
He was
did not
out.
hang
He
up.
didn't want
was
anything
gone.
to do
Okay,
with it.
so was that like the version of dropping the mic
it
after
was.
making a statement?
It was like,
Okay.
and
That was
you
some
know,
build-up.
Well,
Anyway.
obviously, look, everything's matchup oriented. I think that's the most important thing you can say first. They use Quentin Jefferson more. Quentin Jefferson, Tony Jefferson.
Quentin Jefferson?
more.
Who's
Yeah.
that a combination of?
I don't know
Did
who.
you take
I don't.
two?
I have no idea who Quentin
Did you
Jefferson
take
is.
Quentin Nelson and put him with Justin Jefferson?
I don't know.
Is that what you did? Okay.
Perhaps. Tony Jefferson played a lot more. He played almost twice the snaps that Collins did. That was a choice. I think Adoree Jackson being back on the field, which meant then you have McLeod as your 4th corner, or I guess would be your 4th corner if Holmes is your 3rd guy, right? Instead of being your 2nd corner, so they wanted to get McLeod more time on. Like, McLeod still played almost, I think, 30% of the snaps, Lance, if I'm
Yeah, I can look
remember
that. I
correctly.
think that was in that ballpark.
And, before that, the 4th corner had never played that many snaps, really, in terms of playing time. So I think the 4th corner in McLeod took some of those snaps that Landon would have otherwise taken. That's kind of how I look at it, I think. And I think they knew, once again, and they were confident putting 4 corners out there because they knew the Vikings didn't want to run the ball. So, and
that's
Landon's
it.
good against
Yeah.
the run.
McLeod played, let's see, on defense, he played 28% of the snaps.
Yeah, I mean, for a fourth corner, that's a lot.
And I think that was exactly what I was going to get to. You took the words out of my mouth. I think Wink said to himself, they're not going to pound the ball with Dalvin Cook, so we need more defensive backs. And I understand that Landon Collins is more of a tweener, a hybrid type of player, but that's what I think led him to say, okay, we're going to go with the corners and the safeties for the bulk of this game because we know between Hawkinson and Jefferson and Thielen and Osborne, that's the priority to slow those guys down as opposed to have maybe an extra guy in the box to worry about Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, and look, Jalen Smith only played 61%. Jared Davis only played 56%, which means you probably had like at least a third of the snaps. I mean, every time I look down, the Giants had no linebackers on the field. It was just, and like if you want to count Landon Collins, maybe him, but otherwise it was all defensive backs.
Well, better than the Vikings game plan to have nobody on the field.
Well, they weren't technically on the field.
I couldn't find them, so.
You just didn't notice them necessarily. Let's go to Jason in Virginia. He's up next on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Jason, what's going on?
Not much. Just absolutely over the moon about the Vikings win, and it's fantastic. I'm going to say something, and I know you're going to call me crazy. I know you're going to, probably poke fun at me a little bit, and that's okay. Given his performance against the Eagles' starting defense, and we all know they had everything to play for. We had nothing to play for. Would you consider dressing Davis Webb as the number 2 quarterback or possibly even carrying 3 quarterbacks going into this game?
For what reason, though? I mean, what's the big concern?
Look, last week Tyrod Taylor was the backup, and I don't think that's going to change.
I mean, I don't understand the rationale in sacrificing another position. It sounds like you're worried Daniel Jones is going to get hurt in this game.
And by the way, Webb was fine in that game, but it's not like he was, dominant.
No, they didn't come alive until the fourth quarter. It was a 19-0 game.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's just, again, just having seen the defense, just having played it, been exposed to their speed, and kind of having been in the position where against 4 quarters he saw how they shifted, how they adjusted, things like that. Maybe he has a little, my thought process, maybe he has a little bit of insider information that might make him that much better.
But anything that he takes away from that game, he's going to share with Daniel Jones in the quarterback room this week.
And Tyrod.
Yeah, and Tyrod, too. And once again,
I am not suggesting he starts over Daniel Jones.
No, I'm not saying you're doing that, but I mean, Tyrod's got enough experience.
Charlie, is that you, Charlie?
Yeah. Taylor's got enough experience.
Or Datino, is that you?
God forbid Jones gets hurt, that I think they'd be more than confident in Taylor running the offense. And Taylor has more similarities to Daniel Jones from the standpoint of he can run, he can look to run. Davis Webb, I'm not saying that he's a statue. I mean, granted, he had that rushing touchdown against the Eagles in the last matchup, but I think Tyrod Taylor is a little bit more elusive, I would argue, than Davis Webb, despite what we saw in that last regular season matchup.
I got a couple quotes here for you. Do you have anything else, Jason?
Oh, no, that's it.
Thank you. Appreciate the call. No, I appreciate, by the way, great job callers being rapid fire today. Excellent work. 2 quotes.
Well, some of them hung up, so that's even better. That's truly rapid. So
yes, it is.
Yeah.
No, but people have been good getting to your points. I really appreciate that. And Wilson, I'm going to hold you to that too on the next call. So just be ready to get 1 point in there. And
we also should mention that we prefer for future callers to preface your statements by saying you have 2 statements and a question. You have 3 statements and a follow-up. We like that. That really establishes and sets the stage. But please go ahead.
No problem. So Mike Garafolo's at the Eagles today. They have a couple press conferences, a couple quotes for you that he put out there. Nick Sirianni said Jalen Hurts, quote-unquote, better than he was 2 weeks ago. Says he continues to improve, and after holding him back in practice last Thursday, he'll throw fully today. And then from Jalen Hurts himself, not worried about his shoulder being targeted by the Giants defenders. Quote, I've got a bounty on me every week, end quote. And then another quote, I'm going to play my game, and whatever happens, happens, end quote. That does not sound like a guy that's going to be holding himself back in terms of content.
Well, I mean, listen, the season's over if you don't win.
Yeah, but you know what, though? In the first quarter, you get hit the wrong way, you could be out for 4 quarters. So there is a way you can limit yourself to protect yourself so you can stay in the game. Like, I don't know if the shoulder's so bad where a wrong hit, he's out. Like, I just don't know to the extent to which this thing's messed up.
Well, he didn't look in the last game. I didn't look at a quarterback that was struggling to throw when he decided to throw. I
thought he had a little less zip on it, to be honest with you. I did.
That's perhaps what stuck out to me more was no interest at all to test the Giants' defense on the ground.
All slides.
That, to me,
All
stood
slides.
out more than if you want to measure the velocity on his throw. Okay, he didn't put enough mustard on it, fine.
No, and I agree. That was a much bigger factor. 100%.
Yeah, I mean, that to me was like, well, what's going on here? Jalen Hurts looks like a statue. And I understand he wound up having about, I think, 9 run plays, but those 9 were him moving to the right or the left to try to buy time. He wasn't trying to go north or south at all. And that's a game changer.
All right, let's go to Wilson and Roxbury. He's up next. Hey, Wilson.
Hey, guys. So let me see. I think I have 2 statements and a quote.
There we go.
Okay.
Quote. Okay, we're really mixing it up.
Oh,
Yeah.
fancy. Okay.
All right. So listen, I guess the statements is this. When I watch, I'm confident on Saturday because I have to be. I mean, I don't want to sit and watch the game and then thinking I'm going to lose. And why bother watching the game?
Of course,
I'm
Giant
always
fans should be
You should always have confidence.
Yeah, of course
I
you
mean,
should.
There's no rule of thumb that says you should be skeptical.
Okay. So listen, so for all the accolades, right, that Jalen Hurts has gotten this year, fact of the matter is that Daniel Jones has more playoff wins than he does. So all I want, man, I just want to have a game in the fourth quarter, and I want to see how Jalen Hurts going to react because Daniel Jones, I think he's going to excel under pressure, and I want to see how Jalen Hurts does with all that crowds and everything.
Wilson, I hear you. Wilson, I hear you. And just real quick, and then you can finish. Jalen Hurts played in countless, huge, gigantic, pressure-packed national championship level games in college. I don't think pressure is going to be a problem, especially knowing his personality and the type of guy that he is. I don't think pressure is going to be an issue for him, to be honest with you. I don't.
Yeah, what he's been exposed at Alabama and Oklahoma, something tells me
I think
he
he'll be
understands
okay.
what the big stage is about. Yeah.
Well, I know that, but college is one thing, and to play.
Yeah, well, but
with
Nick
all the silly
Saban runs as close to an NFL program that you're going to find. So I would put a lot.
Hey,
of
look
stock
at
in that.
Wilson. There's plenty of reason to be confident in Daniel in those spots. I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, but also real quickly, Wilson. I mean, if your strongest argument though is, and this is not taking anything away from Daniel Jones, Jalen Hurts has played 1 playoff game. Okay, if he played 10,
that's true.
I mean, the sample size is minute, and this whole quarterback record thing that people keep bringing up is just absolutely ridiculous. Because the last time I checked, there were other guys on the field other than the quarterback.
Well,
but, I mean, let's not address that.
Let's see how that goes. One of our top 3, I think, maybe Paul's not on board this necessarily, but one of our top 3 show-wide statements we always make, a record is not a quarterback stat.
No, so that's more of a reason why I don't really want to hear that the differential between 2 guys is also 1 game we're talking about, too.
Go ahead, Wilson.
Right. No, and listen, and I just want to go back. This season it's got such a 2011 feel to it. Like Victor Cruz came out of nowhere. We got Isaiah Hodgins. I mean, Eli started playing super good the last 2 or 3 last games of the 2011.
No, he played well the whole season.
All year.
No, I disagree with
Eli
that.
was an MVP candidate that whole year. He was unbelievable.
Yeah,
I know that, but he was having a listen before we beat the Jets and the 98 touchdown run. Listen, I watched all the Giants games. Eli was rough. He was throwing a lot of interceptions.
No. Wilson, you're thinking of 2007, dude. You're not thinking of 2011. The Giants' defense and running game were awful for all of 2011. The only reason they had a chance to be in the playoffs was Eli Manning was amazing and had maybe one of the best fourth quarter seasons in the history of the league.
Yeah, they had one comeback after another that season.
So maybe okay. So I'm maybe wrong there, but I know. Listen, I know that like, we had to beat the Jets just to have a chance. We had to beat Washington just to have a chance.
Well, it was more the game against Dallas, Wilson, that got them into the playoffs.
Right, that was the last game against. That was the last game against Dallas. And listen, imagine if everything works out and we end up back in San Francisco to play for the Super Bowl. I mean, you can't make a better script than that. And
Thank you, Wilson.
Guys.
Appreciate the call. Hey, or you could be in Dallas, which would be a replay of 2007.
Sure.
So take your pick.
Yeah. I mean, I don't put much
different
comparison
years.
in
It was
stock,
13 years ago, 12 years ago.
Personnel's different. I mean, I understand these are fun exercises, but at the end of the day, what difference does it make?
It is funny,
Is
though.
the
like,
only commonality the owner?
In terms of who's left over
Yes.
from 2011?
How about Schmeelk?
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Schmeelk was a commonality.
So there you
go. So was Lance.
Yeah.
But look, I think it's funny, and I get it. Like, Giant fans of a certain age, they're used to, okay, if we win a playoff game, that means we're going to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that is.
I mean, that's kind of how it's gone, right? Like, if they get that first playoff win, I think every year since the turn of the century they've won a playoff game, they've gotten to a Super Bowl? Or did they win a playoff game in like 06? Maybe.
I have to look that up.
I don't
want
think,
to speak off the record.
Yeah, I have to double check that. But the last two runs for
sure.
No,
the last two runs, there's no doubt.
Since 2007 for sure. Every year the Giants have won a playoff game, they have won the Super Bowl. So, but it's not that easy. Look, you got to come out there, you got to play a great game against Philadelphia. But should Giant fans feel good about it? Absolutely. You're playing your best football of the year. Go out there. It's a division rival. Anything can happen. It's tough to beat a team 3 times in a year. We've been through that whole rigmarole. Talk about back to 2007 with the game against Dallas in the divisional round. That to me, this isn't 2011 to me. This is round 2, 2007 to me, right? Dallas beat the Giants twice in the regular season that year, just like Philly did. Now you're playing them in the divisional round, number 1 seed in their building. Boom. Like, that's what this, if you were to just take a bigger, broad picture look at it, that's what this reminds me of more than 2011.
1993, they beat the Vikings in the wild card, lost to the Niners in the division round.
But not since then. They haven't won the only other playoff wins since then were in the Ravens Super Bowl year and in the 42 and 46.
That's correct.
Okay,
yes.
So I was right then.
Yeah.
Yep. And that was, by the way, the Rodney Hampton game that you ran for like 150 in
exactly.
that game.
Yeah. Well, yes, because you worded it the turn of the century, so that's what you were saying.
Yep.
I thought you were saying that most people were saying pretty much like in history of the organization.
No.
That every time they win one game, it's all or nothing.
Say what though, 93. So any Giant fans that's 30 years old or younger, their experience.
Oh yeah, they don't know any different.
You win a playoff game.
Sure.
You're going to the Super Bowl.
That's right, yeah. Well, and that's why I'm sure a lot of people adopt this philosophy.
Yeah.
By the way, quick side note, I was doing some homework on the whole it's hard to beat a team 3 times in one season.
Okay, what do you got?
Doesn't everybody throw that out
Of
all the
course,
time? I mean,
yeah,
come
yeah,
on.
yeah,
That's probably
yeah,
one of the
yeah,
biggest cliched lines. So
it's the same way you can never beat a team on back-to-backs, right?
No,
you, can,
yes.
you can never win to,
Sure.
or in baseball, you can never sweep a doubleheader.
No, impossible.
all the same.
Yep. So this is going to be the 25th installment since the 1970 merger in which a team that swept the regular season series winds up then meeting the team again in the postseason. So it's happened 24 times. The teams that swept are 15-9 in those 24 occurrences. However, let's peel the layers back, okay? There's more to this, as I preface my comments before I say them here. No,
well, apparently that's what we're doing now. Now I'm going to say, Lance, give us more.
Please set up what you're going to say before you say it. Yeah, I only aim to please here,
Yes.
okay? We're here to appease the people. So there were 19 instances in which the team that swept was the home team in the playoff matchup, which is how it is here, with Philadelphia being the home team.
So they would then be the favorite in
Correct.
theory.
And of those 19, the team that swept and was at home won 13 of those 19
So 13
times.
and
13 and
6.
6.
All right.
Yes. Just to give you an idea. Is there anything to read into that? I don't
No,
know. But
honestly,
I think track record and trends are at least worth bringing up.
Yeah. Look, I think the third matchup, teams very familiar with each other. I do think it probably levels the playing field a little bit, right? I think the more you see a team, it probably, it makes it a little bit tougher, I think. But I don't know.
Well, the only thing I wanted to bring that up because I always hear, and there's no context when people say that.
That's good.
3 times, it's impossible. Well, if you look at those numbers, you wouldn't take 13 wins out of 19 opportunities for the home team?
Have you put that nugget up on Twitter yet?
It's already up. It was up
very
yesterday.
good,
Yeah.
very good.
You
My
should-
thing is that week 17 is just weird. I don't know if that even
Week 18.
Week
week
18,
18 could
yeah.
have been completely different. We don't.
Yeah. I mean, that's why we were talking before, Pearson. Like, I can't. Those first 2 games this year, unlike the Viking game, I thought it was going to be really predictive, and it was. And look, the dangers from the first game, to your point, Lance, I think are there, right? Here's what you can't do if you're going to avoid getting hammered, right? So I think that's what you look at, but I do think the Giants at that point were probably in their stretch of playing their worst football of the season, right?
Yeah, because that was the second half of the season.
And now I think they're probably playing, especially offensively, their best ball. And the Eagles, since that game, actually, I did this math myself. Since that first game against Philly, Lance, the Eagles are just 2-2. And I believe they have a -6 or +6 point differential?
Yeah, the turnover differential has drastically changed.
Yeah.
Let me bring up my chart here.
Yeah, and they also their point differential has almost been, negative, I think, since then. So just something to keep in mind. All right, let's go back to the phones, but first a reminder, Giant fans, take your fandom to the next level with a season ticket membership. Stay connected to the club all year round, not just on game days. Memberships are now available for the 2023 season. To learn more about all the exclusive member benefits, visit Giants.com/tickets. Limited inventory is available. And the Giants' official connected TV streaming app, Giants TV, brings original video content and game highlights on demand and direct to Big Blue fans. Giants TV is free on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire TV and the Giants mobile app. Big Blue Kickoff Live is brought to you by Pepsi Zero Sugar. New and improved. Zero. Never tasted so good. You found your nugget or no?
I am bringing it up as we speak. I was just searching through some documents here. Okay, so I have the numbers through heading into that final game, Week 18. They had 10 turnovers in their first 13 games, 24 takeaways. They were plus 14, the Eagles. Then they had 8 turnovers in their last 3 games leading into that Giants matchup, and then 3 takeaways, so minus 5. That's a huge difference. Plus 14 versus minus 5. And the injuries took a toll on the team as well down the stretch.
Avonte Maddox is somebody to watch this week, too, by the way.
Their nickel corner.
Their nickel corner, who's a big deal. And we'll see a calf injury, Achilles injury. It's some kind of lower leg thing, if
Maddox,
I recall.
let's see, he missed Week 17 prior to the Giants with a toe injury. He missed 6 games with a hamstring injury earlier in the season.
I knew it was lower leg. It's toe, which is technically foot, I suppose.
Josiah Scott, though, has played particularly well in his place. So that's another guy that would step in with respect to Avonte Maddox being sidelined.
Joe in Pennsylvania is feeling a lot of pressure this week. The Eagle fans are on his doorstep. They're waving green flags. They're ready to take him out.
They are. They're talking about already who they got. The head ref of the game is Blenger or something, and they're 12-1 with him. So they're clapping their hands. That's what I hear. I don't want to see anything like it happened to Lawrence there, the way he threw the quarterback like he roughed them, and the same thing when we played Hurts the last game there. They gave him a little push and there was a flag. You know, it's I don't know what the records we are with this head ref, but you know, I hope they look at Thibodeau there, the way he gets bear hugged and taken to the ground every game, and there's never a penalty. I mean, they're part of the game. You got to bring these guys up. So
now there were a couple plays too where Evan Neal did a little grabbing when the guy was coming around his edge too.
There was also a false start on Andrew Thomas that wasn't called too on one of the plays.
I just hope they played fair. But Thibodeau, if there's I don't know how many games, how many plays a game. I could just see it. You know, it's crazy. He's being bear hugged to the ground.
Well, Joe, I mean, the bottom line is we have these conversations all the time.
Can't worry about the refs.
There's going to be missed calls. There's going to be calls that are going to go your way against you. Good teams take care of their business.
And these cheap ones, when you touch the quarterback, it's ridiculous.
Well, but here's the thing, Joe. It's been like that across the league. And I cover the league. I understand you may be focusing in the Giants bubble. These roughing the passer calls have been on shaky ground across the board the entire season.
Yeah, the announcers even said that you got to be able to maybe, what do they say, be able to review them or something like that.
Well, but it's still a judgment call, Joe. You're still going to be having human beings interpret it through slow motion replay, which to me is worse because it then gives you a completely different perspective on the play.
Yeah.
I think what had happened is I think they saw the forearm of Dexter Lawrence hit him in the helmet.
Yeah, I'm
and
curious.
That to me is what indicated the flag. That's how I interpreted it.
Yeah, I'm curious if it was the hit to the head or the sling down. I mean, I would think it was the hit to the head.
I think it was more of the hit to the head.
But I mean,
because here's the thing: the ref saw that, I'm sure, when they were both upright, John.
Right.
So I think he immediately said, "Oh, forearm to the head, throwing the flag."
Whatever. It's whatever.
You can't worry about the officials, Joe. Just
can't lose sleep over this
stuff. You can't worry about it because it's completely out of your control. Don't.
I know.
Just worry about what you can control, man. That's it.
I remember when we had Lawrence Taylor and Parcells, we beat the Skins, I'm sure, 3 times that year too. What I was going to say, who do you think's the best team that we played that we beat all around this year?
Interesting question.
What did he ask?
He asked which team did the Giants beat this year that you would classify as the best team. Now, are you talking about, Joe, just out of curiosity, at the time of the win or now in the wake of the season, who I think is the best team?
All season long, who do you think the best rounded team that we beat?
Yeah, but here's the thing. Like, when the Giants played the Packers earlier in the year, the Packers were playing really bad football, but they turned out to be better. The Panthers in Week 2 were terrible. They turned out to be
What about Chicago? Chicago was a better team later in the season.
Yeah,
they didn't see them.
I mean, and Jacksonville, right? Jacksonville ended up being a really good team, but they weren't playing that well when the Giants faced them. I would probably say the Vikings.
I think the Ravens. So.
Oh yeah, the Ravens. Yeah, no, you're right. You're right, Joe. I take it back. It was probably Baltimore. You're right.
And
It was
they
probably
did
Baltimore.
play the Ravens with Lamar. So I think Baltimore and Minnesota, you can make strong cases. But
I agree it was Baltimore. I'm
I
with you,
give Baltimore the edge because the Ravens have a far better defense than what Minnesota has to offer.
I think Baltimore's better than Minnesota.
Yeah, and Joe, you worded it well-rounded, so we'll go with the Ravens.
Yep, I agree. I think it's Baltimore.
But the Ravens with Lamar Jackson under center, because now, well, they're eliminated. They're clearly not the same team when they have Tyler Huntley there.
Yeah, well, we played them.
You played them with Lamar. Correct. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I'll take it off the air here. Do you think we want to mix it up or run it first or pass it first? So that's all. Take care. Go Giants. Let's go. Thank you.
All right, Joe.
I mean, I think you let what the Eagles are doing on defense dictate it to you, right? Like if they're showing run heavy stop looks early, you throw it on the early downs. Quick throws. If they're have a light box, then you're running on early downs. I think. The good thing about the last few weeks, Lance, the Giants showed that they can now have a multifaceted offense. That was the last question I asked Barkley in the post-game locker room after the game in Minnesota. What does it mean that, because earlier in the year, for the Giants to be that good offensively, to think Saquon would have only touched the ball 11 or 12 times would have been unthinkable. Impossible that the Giants could have been that good offensively with him only touching the ball 12 times. Yet, both games against Minnesota, he only didn't touch it a ton, and the Giants go for 450 or 440 in both games, right? And I asked him, what does it mean? He goes, look, we had an identity earlier in the year. We lost that identity. Teams figured it out. They countered it. Then we had to counter back, and now we've figured out now what we're doing a little bit differently. We're doing it better. And I think this is better because now you have two ways to attack rather than just one. So I think you adjust based on what the Eagles are showing you, what they're daring you to do, and then you try to punish them based on how they're playing their defense.
Well, and the other thing is Barkley had 5 catches against Minnesota, and Daniel Jones, he just dumped it down to him, and, hey, take the yardage. So, that's another way to extend the run game against Philly.
Sure.
Let's see if those linebackers can tackle an open space if Barkley is out wide as a receiver. I think that's just as good because you mentioned the touches. It was really a balanced Saquon Barkley attack overall as an individual on an island. 9 carries, 5 receptions. That would not be bad if the Giants duplicated those numbers. And then Daniel Jones, let's say he gets about maybe 11 or 12 runs. I would think that's a good recipe so that you expose the Eagles to both of those individuals. But as far as run to pass ratio, yeah, that's going to be dictated by the Eagles. You're not going to run the ball just for the sake of running the ball. However, I will say this. It's no coincidence that the Giants won yet another game where they had at least 30 run plays. That has continued that trend. But it has carried out this season. I understand there were a few kneel downs.
There's kneel downs in there, and there's scrambles, too.
Sure. But the bottom line is 30 seems to be their magic number. And you would think, okay, well, you're getting to 30 because either you're playing a close game or you're playing with the lead, which clearly came into play against the Minnesota Vikings. That is the money number. When it's been in the 22 to 25 area or lower, it normally has not meant good things for the Giants. So I think the Giants, they understand that, and they want to get as high volume of runs as humanly possible, but that's going to be also dictated based on the third down situation, which, to get back to the question, you want to make sure that your level of efficiency on first and second down in this game is sky high because you do not want to face 3rd and 8s or longer against this Philadelphia team. You're playing right into the hands of the pass rush. That probably is going to determine the outcome of this game. Look at where the Giants are on third downs and the volume of third downs they face. Because if you remember, first 2 drives against the Minnesota Vikings, they scored touchdowns. Giants didn't face 1 third down in that game. Why? Because they were exceptional on first and second down.
201-939-4513. We have about 2 minutes. We have a hard out at 1:30 today. So let's take our final call of the show and say hello to Nick in Texas. He's up next. Hey, Nick.
Hey, man. Hi, guys. Love your show. Just quick question. What do you think will happen if, for whatever reason, we lose Mike Kafka and Wink in the offseason? What do you think they're going to be doing after that?
Panic. I think they're going to – Brian Dable will strip down to his skivvies and run around the parking lot freaking out. No? No, look, I think you figure it out. I think it's a little early for Kafka. It's his first go-around. I said this last week. Usually it takes 1 or 2 go-arounds, and then they kind of figure it out, right? And then usually that second or third go-around, they get the job. I know they really like, Shea Tierney, the quarterback's coach here. They're a big fan of his. I don't know if that's being a move they'd make. I know they're very high on him. I know they love Jerome Henderson here as well. And Drew Wilkins.
I was going to say, yeah.
Who Wink has basically said he should be a coordinator.
Yep.
He said, look, if I don't get a job, someone should go hire him to be their DC. You know what I mean?
Well, Wink said that in his interview. He said, if you don't hire me, make sure you hire Drew Wilkins.
Yeah, so I think it would probably be Drew if Wink leaves, and offensively. They might go out of house for that too, for all I know. I don't know. I mean, there isn't really anywhere to know, but worry about the Eagles. We got plenty of time to worry about that after the week. From my understanding is no one's, based on reports, no one's interviewing this week. So we got some time to worry about that, Nick.
Well, I would say this. I think Dable coming from Buffalo, and you look at what Sean McDermott did, and I do think when assistants become head coaches, they're influenced by what their predecessors had done. What did Buffalo do when Dable left? They brought up Ken Dorsey.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So I think Dable may see things in a similar fashion. Also, Bill Belichick he worked with for many years. What has Bill done? Bill is also promoted from within, or he's brought back individuals that have previously worked for him, like a Bill O'Brien or somebody like that. So I would say, big picture, my response would be an internal promotion or somebody that's out there that Dable has crossed paths with, that he has a history with, that he'd be willing to bring into the fold. I think that's probably how he would tackle it.
Okay. So there's no chance that they could retain him, right? Like, he's free to go if he has to go?
Who are you talking about retaining?
For Wink or Matt, because
there's a chance that both return. Absolutely, I don't think there's anything guaranteed that they're both going to get head coaches. I mean, there's tons of candidates out there that are interviewing. All of them are not going to walk away with head coaching jobs.
Okay, all right, cool, man. Thanks, guys. I live over here in close to Dallas, so it's really hard to even peek out with my Giants gear. But I'm repping every day, and go Giants.
All right, appreciate the call, man, and thanks for joining with us today, folks, on Big Blue Kickoff Live. It was all presented by Pepsi Zero Sugar. New and improved, zero, never tasted so good. For Lance Medow, I'm John Schmeelk.
Cans right there.
Yeah,
how about that?
I'm going to get two more of that. And Tino hasn't drank them yet, which is the bigger miracle.
That's tremendous. But, I mean, come on. Doesn't get any better than the product placement on this show.
New and improved taste.
Yeah.
Says it right there.
Okay, there you go. I'm sorry I held it wrong. I butchered it.
You did. Your head was over the logo.
There you go.
It was a mess.
I was more interested in me looking at it than
You're
anything
fired.
else. Yes. All right.
Thanks, Pearson.
Something
Lance,
tells me I'll be back
I'm
Friday.
Schmeelk. Yeah, sadly. Me and Lance will both be back with you on Friday. And tomorrow it'll be Paul and Russ on Big Blue Kickoff Live. We'll see you then, everyone.